Hi, I'm Britt.
And my name is Alissa.
And this is SkeleTales.
This is the podcast where we strive to answer the age-old question of, is my dead grandma watching me?
That's right. We tell true tales of the strange, unusual, and paranormal.
Heck yeah, we do.
What are we talking about this week, Alissa?
You know what, Brett? With inflation prices and all this going on with the economy, recession on the horizon potentially, I was like, you know what would make everything better? Some treasure. Finding a good old bucket of hidden treasure would be really cool. So
I love treasure stories. Oh, we did not talk beforehand about this.
No, I know. We should have. I know. It's treasure of many kinds, though, today. I've got a little variety in the treasure. I want to say, did somebody talk about Blackbeard? Did you talk about Blackbeard in one of your stories recently? Or maybe it's that show that you recommended.
The goldfish. I don't know.
My flag means death. Our flag means death.
Oh, great. Totally recommend that show, by the way. But yes, I think we did talk about that briefly.
Okay. Maybe that's why. So I got a little Blackbeard story and then...
Will you just tell me? Just tell me the Blackbeard story. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, I'll just get into it. We're just going to get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this. No one wants to hear us jimmer jammer. First of all, did you know that Blackbeard's name was Edward Teach?
This is just like the TV show. Eddie, Edward, yes. I mean, okay, I only know that his name was Edward because of Our Flag Means Death.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Show, but okay, tell me more.
Okay, I think I just ripped out all of my eyelashes and they fell on my table. They're real. It's not even fake. What the hell just happened there? Okay. I want to find treasure. There is treasure around this country in different places. And apparently Blackbeard's treasure is still out there. When I heard of pirates, I always thought, I don't know why I'd never really realized they were in America and like South Carolina. I always thought they were
like in England, right?
England, the Caribbean, which also we've talked about the geography thing. I thought was somewhere near maybe Australia. I don't know where I thought the Caribbean was. Definitely not just like off the coast of Florida or wherever the hell it actually is, near the Bermuda Triangle and whatnot. Anyway, but this is the Chesapeake Bay, which I'm pretty damn sure is like near Maryland.
Yeah, that's not that far away.
Well, it's far from
us. But for other Americans
who live in the East
we're
Coast.
Like on the opposite side of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it is really far away from us, to be honest. I was like, wait, where do you think it is? So, a walk along the Chesapeake Bay beach today at what is now called First Landing State Park is still very much the same as it would have been in the early 1700s. The windswept dunes sit pinned between the incoming tide and the bald cypress trees of the park, offering an unimpeded view of the bay. While today you can look out and see the massive silhouette of cargo ships, 300 years ago, the view was of the mighty sails of merchant ships heading out to sea or Navy vessels on the hunt for pirates, making it a particularly useful lookout for one Captain Edward J. Teach, Blackbeard himself. Teach stationed his men at Cape Henry while he enjoyed the benefits of being the boss a few miles inland at what is now aptly named Pleasure House Road. When his men would see a ship, they would signal their captain and notify him of the ship's direction. A vessel coming from the east was typically a merchant ship ripe for the taking, while a vessel from the west was often the Royal Navy, from which the pirates would escape by setting sail through the narrow inland waterways back out to the ocean before sailing to their stronghold in North Carolina. One day, as the pirates were enjoying their downtime at the Pleasure House, a gathering place for drinking, a signal came indicating that a merchant ship was approaching from the east. The pirates sprang to action, setting chase to the merchantmen, and soon caught up to them, thanks to their boat being slowed by heavy boxes filled with valuable treasures. After taking control of the ship and the prize on board, cannon fire in the distance alerted him to 2 naval vessels quickly approaching. Without much time, Blackbeard buried his treasure in the sand dunes and made haste down to North Carolina, intending to return to reclaim his gold when they were clear of warships. It was never to be, however, as the Navy's ships caught up with Teach in the Outer Banks. A bloody battle ensued and ended when the pirate captain was beheaded at the hands of Lieutenant Robert Maynard.
In the U.S.?
Yes. Are we not baffled?
Is all new news to me.
I know. Why? Here, let me finish. Though many have tried, the lost treasure of Blackbeard remains unfound to this day. Legend has it that while his death occurred in North Carolina, his spirit has returned to protect that which he holds most dear. The beaches of First Landing are a beautiful place for a late afternoon stroll, but watch your step. Stray too close to where his treasure lies, and you just might find yourself standing through the headless specter of the most infamous pirate to ever sail the high seas, back to claim what is rightfully his. And this is from visitvirginiabeach.com. So First Landing State Park is in Virginia Beach. It's not in Maryland. And dang, it's just south of Jersey and Philadelphia. Like, I had no idea Blackbeard worked out of this area. Like,
that's not too far from New York. Next time we go visit family, maybe treasure hunt.
Do a little treasure hunting.
Yeah.
So Blackbeard's treasure is just sitting there, awaiting to be found, with his headless body haunting it.
I'd go hunt for that.
If I were a ghost hunter, I'd go there with my little EMF, wait for that to go off, and
that's the true reward. Reward of seeing a ghost, reward of buku pay. This is how we're going to fund the podcast, Alissa.
Treasure hunting. I love this idea. But yeah, and then why do I feel bad for Blackbeard being beheaded? I think he killed a lot of people. It's because Taika Waititi plays him in that show. And you just
can't help but love him to death.
I know. And then
just want to snuggle him and more.
There was a similar pirate story that I want to say was somewhere in the States as well, that some Native Americans watched these pirates bury the treasure, and then they threw a body on top of it. They dug a hole, put the treasure in there, threw a dead body on top of it, and then buried it again. And I was like, no, they wouldn't do that to treasure. But then I was like, oh, actually, that is a good move, because if you start digging, you find bones and skeletons. And you're like, dead body.
Oh, don't want to disturb the grave. Yes.
Yeah. But no, you cover up the treasure with that.
Tips and tricks.
Right? Oh my gosh. So that's the story of Blackbeard's missing gold. I'm not sure if it's legal to go dig in the banks of this landing beach place, but
yeah, I wonder after that article was put out how many random huge holes ended up in the beach.
I think over time, it sounds like a lot of the time once these articles or the story goes out and people know it's a thing, it's just decimated. So someone else can go there, go to First Virginia Landing Park, start digging some holes. Let us know what happens. If you get in trouble, get back to us.
Finder's fee.
Yeah.
Give us some gold.
Yeah. If anyone listening to this podcast finds Blackbeard's treasure, you will be hearing from our lawyers. Okay? Our SkeleTales lawyer.
We've got him on call.
Yep. He's on retainer. Okay, Britt, what you got for me today?
I have a story from Tiffany. This particular experience happened at my cousin's home. I've been to their home plenty of times, but only briefly to drop things off. We were down on our luck and our electric was shut off, and they were the only family to let us stay with them. And it was the worst night ever. During the day, I was fine, but as soon as night came, I became anxious and uncomfortable. My husband and kids were fast asleep, so I snuck out so I didn't disturb them. I walked into the kitchen to get a drink, and I felt a wave of rage, just like pure hate. This hatred seemed to emanate from the basement door that was in the kitchen. I ignored this feeling as I walked to the cupboard to get a cup, turned around to get some juice from the fridge when my skeleton nearly jumped out of my skin and I dropped the cup, and it clattered loudly to the floor. There, sitting in the middle of the kitchen, was my cousin's daughter. We'll call her Anne. Now, she's autistic, so at first I didn't think much of it until she began talking. She kept muttering something, so I stepped closer to her and asked, what was she saying? She looked up at me and said, "It wants to hurt you." I said, "Who?" And she pointed toward the basement door. I was scared as hell, but I slowly turned towards the door, and this black mass was on its stomach, its upper body in the kitchen, and its lower half down the basement steps. I could vaguely make out the shape of a head and shoulders. I mainly remember the long arms and pointed fingers as it reached out towards me. This thing gurgled and growled at me. And it stunk like death so bad. I literally stood in fear. For some reason, this thing chose to mimic my dead grandmother's voice, begging and pleading for me to come into the basement with it. "Come on, come to the basement right now." I knew in an instant that it was stuck down there and couldn't come out. This gave me the knowledge that this thing could not actually harm me. I told it to go away, but it continued to try and lure me. That's when Anne stood up, yelled, and cursed at this thing. "Get the hell back down there!" That's what I'm guessing Anne said.
The little baby niece?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe a little different voice.
Okay.
Well, she said she cursed.
And how? Okay, no,
Well, I mean, it doesn't say what exactly she said, just that she yelled and cursed at the thing. How would a little girl, get the heck down there? No, that doesn't sound intimidating at all. Anyways, it slithered back down into the basement immediately like a punished pet. Of course, all this noise never woke anyone up. Anne soon hugged me from behind and muttered that she was sorry. She said, "It takes control sometimes." She stayed with me until 5 a.m. and then went back to her bedroom, which is in the basement.
I'm picturing a 2-year-old niece. How old was this little baby niece? Didn't she say a little baby niece?
Not baby. Her daughter. It just says her daughter. So I in my head envisioned somebody maybe 12 or 13. Just
okay. I'm picturing a toddler. Kid. So,
which is in the basement. I heard her yelling at the thing to leave me alone once she was down there. I quickly left the kitchen and went back to bed, but never actually fell back asleep. Once everyone was up, I explained what happened to my cousin. She brushed it off, chalking it up to my imagination and her daughter's autism. It made me so upset, but there was nothing I could do to make her believe me. We left to stay somewhere else after that. Whatever it was definitely attached to Anne. I felt so bad that I couldn't do anything to help, and I couldn't get her mom to believe me. I never returned back to that house, and I rarely talked to my cousin. I sometimes get messages from Anne, though, and she says she still has problems with the thing.
So much going on in that story. So many levels of horror. They just top. Okay. First of all, the little niece, is it a niece or a cousin? It's a cousin.
Cousin's daughter. So it would be like a second cousin or something, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So slithering on the ground, half evil presence. It smells terrible.
Yeah.
I'm out already right there. And then it also is impersonating their dead grandma's voice.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? and then she can kind of control it.
Oh, the arms reaching out with the pointed fingers towards her. Come to me.
What would have happened if it got her? And then Anne's apologizing for it. Like maybe Anne created it. Maybe Anne unleashed it. Maybe it's like a part
Anne's
of Anne.
Evil pet or something. Because then Anne goes down the basement and is like, how dare you try to get her? You know, like, I don't know. It's such a weird, crazy story.
Oh, that one is creepy. That reminded me.
Thank you, Tiffany, for sending that in.
The smell part. We had talked about the aliens at one point in one episode, a few episodes ago.
Yes.
And the aliens smelling, right?
Yes.
And I forgot to mention that my mom wrote me after reading that, and she proposed that maybe they're like skunks and they emit like a smell when you get too close to them. It's like
or they're like
scared.
Mechanism.
Yes.
Ooh.
It doesn't sound like this one was scared, but just the smell of rot. Do you think there's dead people in the basement? Now I'm thinking there's just like dead people in the basement.
Oh, it could be. Oh, lots of possibilities, but all of the possibilities are horrific.
Hate it, but love it. Don't want to live in a house like that. I feel like those stories should be required to leave an address afterwards, just so you can steer clear. Okay.
But the people who listen to this podcast would be like, I'm going next weekend.
In just researching for my stories this week, I did see like a headline. I didn't read it, that like haunted houses actually do not put home buyers off. I was like, yeah. It's kind of exciting. It's a topic of conversation.
It is.
Also, having a ghost around to blame shit on, so convenient.
Oh, so sorry the house is a mess. It's the ghost.
Yeah, it was real clean. When I went out to the mailbox, came back, Leonard the poltergeist strikes again.
Every time.
Okay, so I kept on this not exactly hidden treasure theme, but because you, my friend, are a top-notch thrifter.
Yes.
I was into like found treasure. An article actually locally that was written by this Bellevue Rare Coins was miraculous accidental treasure finds. And in this, it does include that one that you found in, I think it was Northern California, where the people are out for a walk and find a old can, just the corner of it, and it's full of
gold coins. Yeah.
Which is my dream. Can I manifest that? I think I'm going to put that on my vision board.
Vision board. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, just hidden treasure. I think worth a shot. So this first one is what made me be like, oh, Britt's going to love this. When the Declaration of Independence was originally issued, 200 copies were printed. Of those 200 copies, only a few have ever been found and verified. One of those copies was discovered in 1989, very much on accident. A man went into a thrift store looking for a nice picture frame. He found one that fit his criteria, paid $4 for the frame, and took it home. When he took apart the frame to put in his picture, he made the discovery of a lifetime. Behind the canvas and inside the frame was copy number 25 of the U.S. Declaration of Independence. He went on to sell the document for nearly $2.5 million.
Oh my God.
Not bad for a $4 frame. You know what? Now
Where did you say he found the frame at?
A thrift shop. He had something else he wanted to go framed, and he's like, oh, I just need a frame. So he didn't even care what was in this picture. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it was
amazing.
Yeah, it could have been. It was probably like a creepy clown picture or something. But he's like, that frame is mint. And found that behind it. So that means, though, I think I saw something that was updated. It was right around 30. Only 30 out of 200 copies of the Declaration of Independence have been found. That means there's still like 170 others potentially that haven't been destroyed floating around out there. I like them odds.
Yes. It makes me want to go find some old frames. What's behind some old frames.
Or I do wonder, I kind of feel like, too, I remember having a Declaration of Independence, seeing one in my house, I think, as a kid. It was like mounted to a piece of wood and like looked aged. I don't think it's genuine, but I do think possibly it's just like hanging. There's probably just hanging in people's houses. They think it's this old thing. They have
no idea.
No clue that it's actually a genuine copy. So that's pretty crazy. Okay. I think we've already talked about there's one in here that someone's out with a metal detector in a field in England because their friend dropped a hammer.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, friend, come help me find my hammer.
You've got the metal detector. Yeah.
And that there's several of these. Hey, friend, help me find my ring, my wedding ring. And instead of finding their ring or the hammer, they found 15,000 Roman brown gold and silver coins and 100 of other gold and silver spoons, forks, pieces of jewelry, statues. And then the farmer and his friend who loaned him the metal detector split the money from the hoard, earning almost $3 million each.
Hell yeah.
Right?
Over in Europe, man, it is ripe for the picking. When we were in Italy a few years back, so many stories. Oh yeah, I just went to go dig a hole on the property and found these ancient coins, and here they are in a museum now.
You're just tripping over cans of coins, ancient coins.
We might be living in the wrong place for treasure hunting.
So they split the hoard. So anyone who finds Blackbeard's gold
50-50.
50-50. Okay. This blew my mind, this next one, the Terracotta Army. This was the one we talked about. This is now, okay, you hadn't talked about Blackbeard separately. We talked about Blackbeard. We had talked about the Terracotta Army. Did it ever make it onto the podcast? Not sure. May have clipped it. But basically, the Terracotta Warriors were supposed to be like cursed. And then we had a little one and its head fell off and I made one out of Play-Doh.
Cursed.
Yeah. For a long time. That just sat on the shelf and I think I finally parted with it. Anyway, a Chinese farmer in the 1970s wanted a new well on his property. So in the 1970s, so he began to dig, but instead of hitting groundwater as he'd expected, he found an underground cavern filled with 8,000 perfectly preserved, unique statues of ancient warriors. He'd stumbled upon the site of the tomb of Emperor, oh boy, no clue.
You got this.
No. How do you pronounce a Q in Q-I-N? How's that in? Qin Shi Huang? Sorry. Okay. The man who united the warring factions of China in the 2nd century BC. Upon ascending the throne at the age of 13, Emperor Qin ordered the Terracotta Army to be constructed to protect his tomb upon his death. The whole site is now a museum open to the public. So the Terracotta Warriors were only discovered in the 1970s.
The 70s. I thought that was way back in the 40s or 30s.
I thought everyone knew about it always or something. I had no idea. Regardless, something I just kind of took it for granted. It's such a recent discovery.
Yes. Oh, that's fascinating.
I don't know. I actually don't know if this fellow who was digging for well water got any money out of that. I actually think they destroyed his whole town as a result, is what I remember the story being, to make it into a museum. So that's the opposite of treasure. That's disaster. I don't know. So since we don't have fields to plow or aren't digging for wells
to dig,
yeah, I really was like, that thrift store one is probably the most realistic possibility to finding treasure.
Yeah.
And so in 2012, a fella in Columbus, Ohio came across an old poster for a Pablo Picasso art exhibit. And he just thought it was like a cool looking reproduction. And so he paid $14.14 for this. But then when he got home and started doing a little research, he realized, oh, there's some kind of flecks of red in here. And actually, this might be like a real print. And sure enough, his print that he paid $14 for was actually a genuine Picasso print that sold for $7,000, which is actually, that's a good profit.
Yeah, it's not like 7 million.
Yeah.
But,
Okay, so if you need another reason to go buy ugly old picture frames, here's one for you. Art dealer and collector Laura Stouffer enjoyed nosing around in secondhand stores. On a 2007 visit to a thrift shop in Somerville, South Carolina, she found a framed print of a painting from the mid-1800s. She liked it, and it didn't cost much, so she bought it and took it home. That's where she discovered that the print was hiding something much more valuable. Lurking between the art and its cardboard backing was an original movie poster from the 1930 Oscar Award-winning movie All Quiet on the Western Front. Estimates put the poster's value at up to $20,000.
What?
Right? A movie poster.
Why is this behind
an old print?
Yeah.
Frames can kind of be hard to come by. And if it doesn't strike you as something that you like, right? You're just like, oh, just cover this old thing up with this beautiful.
That's true. I do have several. I mean, it's usually just photographs, but the lazy part of me is like, instead of having this random photo layer, I'm just going to put a photo, in front of this one. And then there's, a few layers of photos there.
Yeah. So in 1992, Terry Horton bought what she thought was a huge, ugly painting for $5 as a gag gift for a friend. Though the friend found the thrift shop find hilarious, she had no room for it, so Horton took it back home. When she tried to unload it at a garage sale, an art teacher told her that maybe she should check out to see if it wasn't a Jackson Pollock. Horton ultimately hired a forensic specialist who found a fingerprint from the famed splatter painter on the piece and traced the paint to his studio. Horton has been offered $9 million for the painting,
what?
But she wants $50 million.
Oh my gosh,
like,
greedy.
A little, I mean, you got it for $5. So, if anyone isn't familiar with Pollock, it literally looks like someone took a paintbrush and just splattered layer upon layer upon layer of paint on a canvas. They're not overly attractive, I don't think. They're just it looks messy. It looks like if you painted a bunch of stuff, what a floor of a paint studio might look like, but framed. Millions. $5.
Wow.
Millions. I love that it was bought as a gag and then, oh my gosh.
The friend's like, I don't have space for this. You take it back. The friend is
right?
They're like kicking
no, why
did I turn the gift away?
And then there was one more that Sotheby's in 2017 auctioned a diamond ring that the owner had bought decades earlier at a London junk sale for about $13. Due to, in part to the low price for the ring, the buyer had always assumed it was costume jewelry, also because it was like comically large gem in there. It was just a ridiculous piece of costume jewelry. After wearing it out shopping and doing chores with it over the years, she finally decided to have it appraised. It was then that she discovered it was actually a 26-carat diamond cut in the 1800s and worth around $455,000.
That's amazing.
That's
really
the
pretty. Find I want. I want that one. I want the huge diamond ring.
Oh my God. I like the shiny stuff. So there's so many of there's so many of these. Like this one gal bought a cheap necklace for $15 at a flea market. 3 years later, she was sporting the piece at an Alexander Calder exhibit at the Philadelphia Art Museum when she began to notice some similarities between the necklace she was wearing and the ones that were on display at this exhibit. As it turned out, her necklace was an authentic 1940s work by the famed sculptor valued at $300,000.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think it's possible to do this anymore? Because I feel like with research, with internet, like someone's going to research that shit. Like there's just like, is it possible?
I will say I am guilty of using the Google Lens when I'm at the thrift store and I see a little trinket and I'm like, I wonder. I just do the reverse Google search.
Yeah.
And it'll pop up with like, oh yeah, this is on eBay for $20 or whatever. Or, oh, this is, worth a penny.
Like it seems so easy to do that now that it's like, can you find a diamond in the rough?
Oh, I think it depends on where you are. At a thrift store, maybe if it's like a hole in the wall, no name thrift store. But I want to.
But there's such quantity as well that you kind of think maybe it's not possible to just research everything.
Fall through the cracks somewhere. Some crazy valuable item.
Okay, so this will be the last one, and this will give you hope that possibly.
Okay.
There's still room for this. So a scrap metal dealer got an amazing bargain when he paid $14,000 for an ornate golden egg at a flea market. How he was just his walking around money is 14 grand that he could just pick up a golden egg.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe not the most realistic, but he planned to have it melted down and hoped to net a small profit. But he did some Googling first and found a 2011 article describing the hunt for a long-lost Fabergé egg made for Russian royalty in the late 1800s. The scrap dealer took his egg to a Fabergé expert, an antiques dealer in London, who confirmed it was the real deal. And it was this missing Russian Fabergé egg, the Easter egg hunt that was going on for I don't know if it's hundreds of years. I don't know, 100 years. The egg was later sold for an undisclosed amount. Estimates put its value at $33 million. Million. So he may turn 14,000 into 33 million.
Holy shit.
Okay. You know what we need to do? One,
get
we need to learn
$14,000.
Just start walking around money. We need to know how to. I want to become a gemologist real quick, and
real quick.
Goldologist. We need to know how to identify gems.
True.
And real gold. That would help.
It definitely would. Yeah, we could just like use our skills with our gold knowledge and be at a thrift store and be like, fake. Real. Goldologist in action.
I think it involves a lot of biting. I think. A lot of biting. I don't know if my teeth can take that. I'll bring the kids. They got young teeth.
They teach that in the goldologist school.
Just here, take a chomp of that.
All right.
Milo.
Here's this platter of gold. You bite down and just tell us which one's real.
Yeah. But that would be a good tool, like one of those little
the eye magnifying.
Oh, Siri, I was not talking to you.
Haunted.
Good
stories. I am all day. I love it. I'm fascinated. Well, we've talked several a time about that Facebook group that's like hidden treasures or found hidden items, or I don't actually remember the name. It's morphing into more than just treasures. There's like, look at this old letter I found in the wall, or, it's other things.
I like that group, but I want real treasure that's worth like millions. But I also don't want to be the chump that gives away treasure for $5 at a garage sale.
Friend that turns away the $1 million gift, $9 million gift.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, is it luck or is it skill? I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Oh, I love it. I love the stories where someone buys a coat or a purse at a thrift store and they look in the pocket and there's some jewelry, or like, oh, here's just $500 in the pocket.
Yes.
Like,
there was one that was a couch it was a fold-away couch someone got at a thrift store, and they just used it for a while. And then finally, eventually, a few months later, they decided to actually open it up to the fold-a-bed. And in there was a painting worth like $30,000 or something. Someone just stored the painting in the couch. Oh my gosh. So, okay. We were talking about going to estate sales, and I do think that sounds fun because you might get to it before. I feel like thrift stores have already been picked over a little bit.
Oh, estate sales. Yes,
they're still
because
fresh.
you could find that random purse that might have the, $30,000 ring in it, or, that random painting that's in somebody's drawer where you're like, I'll give you $1 for it.
I want a gemology training now. I want one of the little, what is that called?
The little peephole.
Yeah, like the little microscope.
I don't know.
I want to be able to come home with this ring I found and be able to like look at it and be like, oh, genuine, or be like, cubic zirconia or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have to like Google. I just want the skills.
Yeah. I bet there's an online course for that. Probably. With a free magnifying eyepiece. All right.
Okay.
I have one more freaky tale for you.
Okay, let me hear it.
Here we go.
Freak me out.
This is from Annie. They say, we were at my aunt's house. There was a tornado outbreak forecasted, and she was the only one with a basement, albeit a rough one, but it was mostly underground and better than our mobile home. My dad and uncles were all on the front porch, and there was a tornado across the street. My mom, cousins, aunts, and Mama went into the basement. It was flooding. We had to wade through like 3 feet of water to get to the corner where a dirt mound was elevated. The water was rising too. So here we are in a flooding basement, a tornado coming right at us, and my mama begins speaking in tongues, praying. I look to my left and see a teenage girl standing on top of the water, like her feet were on the surface, and she was kind of hunched over out of the beam so that she could see us. She was very pale, but her blue veins were very noticeable on her arms. Her eyes were white with no other color, and she looked really mad or maybe disgusted. I was for a moment too scared to look away. But then I turned and looked at my mama. I see that she's looking at this girl too, and she's either praying or to or against whatever that girl was, and not even at the tornado that was about to hit us. Then I looked back to where the girl was, and she was gone. The tornado jumped us and missed us, but my uncle, who'd been on the front porch, ended up having a heart attack. It was a wild night. I know it was a ghost because A, people can't stand on water, and B, her eyes and her lips looked drained of life. The feeling I felt while I stared at her, it was fear that I've never felt before or since.
Ugh. See, I don't like that. I don't want to be scared when I see a ghost. I want it to be warm and comforting.
Like, you're already in the most horrific situation. A basement that's filling up with water, and you're like in the corner of the basement hunched on like this dirt mound, and it's a tornado's coming at you, and that's your first time to see a ghost.
The ghost is like, I think now's the time. Or they've been like sitting there like trying to appear for like so long, and then finally pop into existence.
A ghost in the basement again. I did not even realize that my 2 stories were like similar in this.
I was like, did you search for haunted basements? Was that like what your search terms were this week?
I think the little girl probably lives, haunts the basement all the time, but it sounds like they don't frequent the basement very often. And so here they are like hanging out, and she's like, get out of my basement.
Or do you think she drowned in there during a hurricane or a tornado at another point if it was flooding and she looked so blue and pale?
That's why she's, blue and pale with white eyes. Woo.
She also sounded like a doppelganger. Somebody's doppelganger possibly appearing.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I heard a story just recently, and maybe it was like a TikTok thing I saw, that a girl is asking her dad how Buffy the Vampire Slayer saved their lives during a tornado. He's like, all right, well, Buffy was on, and I wasn't gonna miss Buffy. And it's this old grizzled dude with like overalls and stuff. And there was a tornado coming, and the tornado warning was going, the sirens were going, and I said, fuck it, I'm not missing Buffy, because this is back before the days you could TiVo it or whatever, record it. But the whole rest of the family went outside to the cellar, the storm cellar, and hunkered down. And this man sat and watched his Jessica, or whatever the fuck is her name, Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, while a whole tornado blew on by. Apparently they didn't lose electricity, which I do find surprising, or cable, but whatever. So he's into the episode, and then realizes like an hour or two later, so Buffy must be over, and just kind of sitting there watching. And he's like, wait, where is everybody else? And so he goes back out to look for his family. And during the tornado, a big tree had fallen on top of the cellar, and he could hear them all screaming, and they couldn't get out because they were trapped in the cellar. And he would have been in there too if it hadn't been for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I love that story. And he rescued everybody.
Yeah, and he rescued everyone.
Brilliant.
So that's a happy Seller story to maybe leave that
That is a much happier Seller story to end on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great stories, Britt. Yours were super creepy. Ours couldn't be more different this week. Possibly.
I know. We
should have coordinated, but that's okay. It's been a rough couple weeks for us, so we're just doing our best.
This was the best. It was wonderful and very fun. If you have a treasure story to share or a creepy shadow person or basement story to share, you can head over to our Hotbox and email us
at SkeleTalesPodcast@gmail.com. You can also call us on our hotline
302-689-DEAD, 302-689-3323. You can send messages through our social medias, which we are everywhere.
Heck yeah.
At SkeleTales or SkeleTales Podcast, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat. No, we're not on Snapchat. Just kidding. Don't find us over there.
Yeah, I don't snap.
We're not 14.
And then come join us on our SkeleTales community over on Facebook.
Speaking of fun treasures, we have a merch shop, skeletalespodcast.etsy.com, where I am posting up haunted treasures weekly. This week, it is a old mortar and pestle from a Coors laboratory from the 1920s.
Ooh, the Coors?
Yeah. So before they were a brewery, or maybe it was during Prohibition, they turned into a laboratory. And this is a random ceramic mortar and pestle from their lab.
Like Coors Brewing Company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So cool. So go check that out. I'm going to go check that out. And anything else, Britt?
Rate. Review.
Yeah, man. We haven't had a review in so long.
Friend. We'll read it on the podcast if you leave a review.
Heck yeah, we will.
Oh, there is one more thing too, Alissa. I can't believe I almost forgot to tell you this. Haunt y'all later.
Haunt you later. Good night.